My husband ghosted me and filed for divorce just BC. I asked to open the relationship, WTF. Hello, Reddit. Posting here because my friends recommended it and said it would help me feel better. Please note I'm not coming on here to be judged. I know what I did was fucked up and I've been dealing with the fallout ever since. I'm just looking for a safe space to share my stories. My name is Isabella and I am a 28-year-old woman. I've been married to my husband Owen, a 29-year-old man, for about 4 years now, and we dated for 2 years. Owen and I first met at this cozy bookstore in the city, totally by chance. I was deep into a poetry book, lost in the words, and Owen, caught up in some classic novel, accidentally bumped into me. We shared a laugh about the book collision, and that's how it all started. Our conversation wasn't anything fancy, just talking about the books we were into, but somehow it became this real connection. Owen's friendly vibes and his interest in my poetry made the bookstore feel like a safe place where we could be ourselves. As we ventured out beyond the bookstore, the city became our playground. We'd hit up local cafes, check out art exhibits, and just wander around parks, hand in hand. Every step felt like we were exploring not just the city, but also each other's worlds. With Owen, it was more than just a relationship. It was like finding a partner who got me. That little bookstore turned into our spot, where our story began. A reminder that sometimes cool connections can start in the most unexpected places. Our first date was like the start of a cool love story. We decided to keep it chill, just grabbing dinner at this cute Italian place on a quiet street. I was so nervous. Owen was already there, greeting me with a friendly smile. The fact that he picked an Italian spot showed he was paying attention to our chats about food preferences. Once we snagged a cozy spot inside, the vibe was just right. Soft lights, a background hum of people talking, and that Italian herb smell floating around. The conversation rolled naturally from small talk to deeper stuff. Owen shared childhood stories, and I found myself opening up about my hopes and dreams. Owen made me laugh a lot. He made it all feel easy and natural. When the food hit the table, it was like a team effort to navigate the menu. We shared bites, cracked jokes about our food quirks, and it felt like we were on the same wavelength. As the night went on, Owen reached over and our hands met in the middle of the table. Simple, but it spoke volumes. In the restaurant, we silently agreed that this wasn't just any date. It was the start of something good. Post-dinner, we went for a spontaneous walk through the city. The night air was crisp, and the city lights set the scene for our after-dinner adventure. Walking hand in hand, we shared stories and exchanged glances that said way more than words. Our first date wrapped up with a solid hug and plans for more hangs. Years later, and we still have an amazing relationship with each other, still make time for dates every week, and really just enjoy each other. He became my best friend pretty instantly from when we started hanging out in high school, and that still hasn't changed today. I have a girlfriend who I do call my best friend, and outside of my marriage she is, but even that doesn't compare to the friendship I have with my husband. We've had our rough patches, but never anything very severe. There are some things I need to change about myself and things he needs to work on as well. Nothing relationship ending, just things that we need to do to be better people and better partners. And I doubt this will ever change, as it's impossible to just be perfect people. We don't have any children yet, but plan to try for some soon. We both work, and though I bring home pretty decent money, Owen actually makes a lot more than I do. He also owns our house. Although we've both had small patches of unemployment in the past and we're supported by the other. There's never been any hostility over the finances, regardless of who is making more or who is supporting whom. Our marriage has survived depression, alcoholism, and a couple of physical medical conditions, all met with overwhelming support from each other. We are a great team. Our sex life is great and really active. A dry spell for us is going the work week without having sex because one or both of us are just too exhausted. But that is not very common. We get along well with each other's families, and my family has really bonded with my husband. As far as they are concerned, he's just another son and brother. He's everything I could have ever hoped for in a husband and more, and I really truly love him. Now, I've felt myself attracted to others in the past, and I'm sure he has been through the same, but it's not anything we've ever discussed with each other. I know that it's normal, and it's never been anything too intense before. If I find myself starting to get feelings for someone who I see a lot, It doesn't take much to shake off. This is the first time I ever dealt with feelings so intense, and I didn't really know what to do next. My coworker was very attractive, super friendly, and I just enjoyed being around him. We started working at this company around the same time, roughly 8 months ago. We were in training together for a couple of weeks, which was absolute torture. My feelings came on strong and came on quick. I'm sure I turned red when he flashed me a smile a lot of times. It would be embarrassing enough if I were single simply because we worked together, but I'm married, and I feel like that probably looks really poorly on me. We don't work together anymore, but our departments are close, and if he walked through my section, he'd put his hand on my shoulder and give it a squeeze to get my attention when he was walking by, then flash me that smile. I would make conversation if we pass each other or are at a work event together, but I did the same with pretty much everyone I worked with / currently work with. We don't have each other on social media, haven't exchanged numbers, and don't see each other outside of work. I was invited out to a bar nearby by him and a few others a couple of times, but turned them down. I work in a male-dominated field and didn't feel right being the only woman out at the bar with a bunch of guys, especially one who I do feel this way about. I avoided his floor at work when possible, and if he's on lunch at the same time, I'll say hi as I pass, but just grab my stuff and eat on the patio or on another floor. I try to just avoid thinking about him or remind myself of how dumb I'm being, but I can't shake this feeling. And I'm afraid I'm going to be an idiot and let passion take over or any of that nonsense cheating people usually use as excuses. I think all of those excuses for one-time mistakes are garbage. I'm trying to be in control of my actions and could never be so cruel to my husband. I just don't know what to do to shake these feelings. The last time I felt such a strong desire for someone was when I met my husband. We were great friends instantly and hung out, fooled around for about a year before we made things serious. I was very young when we got together, and none of my relationships prior were very serious. I just never felt so strongly attracted to someone and didn't think it was even possible to with anyone else. I don't compare my husband to my coworker or vice versa, and that's not what I'm trying to do here either. I've just been able to shake it off any time I've had feelings come on for someone else. It doesn't matter what I do with this guy, though. If I think about it's hard to get him off my mind regardless of what's going on around me. I have gone weeks without running into him, and he won't cross my mind. But then, I can catch a glimpse of him when I'm strolling into work, and my heart will start racing faster. I have a desire to be around him and be close to him, and I just need it to go away. I feel like I'm in high school all over again. Except instead of daydreaming in class, I'm trying to get this dude off my mind and get some damn work done. I know that Reddit is big on full disclosure, but this wasn't something I felt like discussing with my husband. These feelings weren't coming out of neglect or want in my relationship with him. I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything by being with him, and there was nothing that he could do that would fix that for me. If he were feeling the same way about someone, I can honestly say I wouldn't want to hear about it. If he felt neglected and like my actions were causing him to desire affection elsewhere, then that would be a different story. I know that this is something that would affect him really bad, and I didn't want him to feel uncomfortable for the 50 hours a week that I would be in the same building with this guy when there's nothing he could do or say that would change what's going on with me, and there's no chance of me crossing a line. I just didn't see the purpose in creating an issue in my marriage when there wasn't one. We're probably closer to 25%, 30% female employees, the rest being male. We all give each other a hard time and play around, and it's not just all the guys here petting on the women. I've only had female coworkers mess with my hair as they're running by, similar to what I do with my sisters. The extent of touch that I've gotten given to any of the guys here has been a pat on the back for a good job in a rough close, handshakes, pat on the shoulder in passing to get their attention while going to make copies. This isn't a stuffy office setting, but this isn't HR's nightmare either. That being said, I decided that I needed to find a way to put distance between coworker and myself, given the reaction he got out of me, even with something as simple as eye contact. However, when I resumed work after the weekend, I found out that he had put in for a transfer into my department and had also been added onto my team. No problem, I'm an adult. I can behave like an adult. And the time away to clear my head and reevaluate where I was putting my energy had had a bigger affect than I anticipated. Well, things got a little weird. He started grabbing me coffee when he'd pick his up because I took on a new project and was showing up earlier, staying later than normal. but didn't do this for anyone else whose workload had increased. About 4 of us took on new clients. Our lunches lined up a little more frequently. I got friend follow requests on social media, declined, stuff like that. I felt like he would stand a little closer to me than what was comfortable, but at this point still felt like I was reading too much into it. It was confusing and difficult given that this feeling isn't wanted, but I do just feel drawn to him, like there's a connection I desperately want to break. I always park by the smoking section because I have a bit of a habit and like to be close, and he caught me tonight while I was walking out to my car. He stopped me and asked to bum a smoke, and we talked for a couple of minutes. He then said he had something kind of uncomfortable to talk to me about. He told me he had felt really attracted to me since we first met, and that working more closely with me has shown him that he has some real feelings for me. He says he knows that I'm married and will respect any boundaries I set up, but that he hasn't felt this strongly about someone before, and he couldn't live with the what-ifs. Apparently, he went so far as to end things with his girlfriend, and is now staying with his parents for a couple of weeks while he gets a new place lined up. He said he could feel something between us and didn't think it was only him. I told him that I am very happily married and that he shouldn't mistake my friendliness with flirtation, and that he needs to learn more appropriate boundaries with coworkers. I asked him to give me distance, and that if it wasn't work-related, there was no reason to discuss it because we are coworkers, not friends, and left. He looked a little defeated and apologized for overstepping. So, there I was, caught up in this mess of feelings for a coworker who seemed like he stepped out of a movie or something. Honestly, he was like a magnet drawing me in, making me feel all sorts of things. But here's the kicker. I'm married and I made promises. Dealing with this crush was like walking on a tightrope, trying not to fall into a pit of bad decisions. I knew I couldn't mess with my marriage, but dang, the attraction was strong. After some back and forth, I decided to spill the beans to the coworker. I repeated him, "Look, I'm into you, but I can't mess up my marriage." It was tough, but I had to do it. The air got heavy with the weight of the conversation, and I could see the spark we had dim a bit. Trying not to completely crush the guy, I asked for some time to sort my head out. He was cool about it, gave me the space I needed. Heading home, my thoughts were all over the place. I knew I would hurt my husband, and that stung. But deep down, I knew I couldn't let this attraction mess up what I had with him. My husband was out of town on a work trip, so I had to come home to an empty house feeling the weirdest mix of emotions I've had since this whole mess started. I even had trouble falling asleep by myself, and the whole situation was a mess. So, after a night of barely catching any sleep, I had this light bulb moment. Instead of sneaking around and breaking promises, what if I could get my husband to agree to open things up a bit? We're not exactly the thrill-seeker type, but I figured a little nudge might do the trick. The plan was simple. Talk to my husband about the idea of us having an open relationship. It felt like a fair deal to me. I get to explore things with my coworker without stepping into cheating territory. So, I decided that the next day when my husband was back from his business trip, I decided to have that heart-to-heart and see if he'd be game for this not-so-traditional solution. I also knew that I couldn't tell my husband about this crush on my coworker because he would never agree to open the relationship. I decided that if he asked why I suddenly wanted to open the relationship, I would tell him it was because I had gotten a little bored and wanted a little bit of an adventure. So, the next day rolls in, and my husband shoots me a text saying he's back from his business trip. I'm at work, and I reply that I'll head straight home after my shift because I needed to chat about something. Knowing he's prone to a bit of panic, I reassure him it's nothing urgent or bad. He breathes a sigh of relief and says, "Okay." Work finally wraps up and I rush home. To my surprise, my husband had whipped up dinner and he nailed it. Italian, my favorite. We sit down, and he's giving me these curious looks, probably wondering what's up. After we're done eating, I decide it's time to spill the beans. I'm careful with my words, making sure to be both cautious and a bit firm. I start by telling him how much I love him and that our marriage is one of the best things in my life. He nods along, all ears. Then, I throw in that I've been feeling a bit bored lately, thinking we could use a little adventure. He looks puzzled since, as I've mentioned before, our sex life is solid. He asks what I have in mind, and that's my cue. I take a deep breath and pop the question, how would he feel about us opening up our marriage? My husband's face didn't betray a single emotion. He calmly requested me to repeat what I had just said, although I could tell he caught every word. This wasn't new. Even when we were dating, he had this knack for maintaining a perfect poker face. I figured he just wanted me to say it again to confirm that it wasn't some kind of misunderstanding. So I took a breath and repeated the question, asking him how he would feel about opening up our marriage. To say my husband was appalled would be an understatement. Angry doesn't even cover it. He shot up from the couch, questioning if I'd lost my mind, demanding to know what I meant by all this. I was taken aback by the intensity of his reaction. Trying to explain, I told him that I thought opening up our marriage could inject some excitement. But he wasn't buying it. He accused me of lying, claiming that this was just a shady way for me to find an excuse to cheat. My husband unleashed a verbal storm, hitting me with words that cut deep. He has this way of using words that stings, and within seconds, tears were streaming down my face. I kept pleading with him to stop, assuring him that cheating was the last thing on my mind. What else was I supposed to say? But he wasn't buying it. He claimed I was just covering up, and that made the tears flow even harder. He dropped a bombshell, saying this whole thing made him reevaluate our marriage. That hit me like a ton of bricks, and I begged him even more. I tried to take it all back, telling him to forget I ever brought it up, but he wouldn't let it go. According to him, me suggesting an open marriage meant I'd been thinking about cheating for a while. It was like a punch to the gut. Then he dropped the bomb. He needed some space. I resisted, but he stood firm, threatening to kick me out. More tears. He suggested I go stay with my sister or parents, giving him the breathing room to figure out what all of this meant for our future. Trust, he said, was gone, and he no longer believed in me. The weight of those words really hit me hard. Facing the reality that I had to leave, I knew my husband's calm demeanor often morphed into an impenetrable wall of anger. When he reached that point, there was no reasoning with him. All you could do was wait for the storm to pass so you could have a rational conversation. So I packed up the essentials and headed to my sister's place. She was shocked to see me, having only sent her a text about coming over. Luckily, we shared a close bond, and she welcomed me in with open arms. Pouring my heart out, I spilled all the details of the clash with my husband. She couldn't believe it. Asking the hard questions, my sister wanted to know if I was planning to cheat. Unable to lie, I spilled the beans about the coworker who had caught my eye. Disappointment radiated from her, and she wasted no time calling up my parents to share the news. They too expressed their disappointment but promised to help me talk to my husband. No matter how much I or my family tried, my husband seemed to disappear into thin air, ghosting me for a relentless 3 months. Not a single word from him, no response to texts, no acknowledgement when we showed up at his place. It was like he vanished into thin air, leaving us with unanswered questions and a sense of helplessness. My worry grew, coupled with anger. I called in sick to work numerous times, unable to focus when I did show up, seething with resentment towards my coworker. The attraction I once felt toward him withered away, and I realized he was at the root of this whole mess. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, my husband broke his silence. I hoped it meant his anger had subsided and forgiveness was finally going to happen. But no, he dropped a bomb. In a text, he apologized for ghosting me and dropped the bombshell that he wanted a divorce. No discussion, no closure, just a cold announcement. Devastated, I spent the entire day in tears, calling in sick to work yet again. My sister stayed by my side, trying to console me, but the pain was unbearable. How could I move on without the man I loved so deeply? The future seemed bleak without my husband, and I felt utterly lost. After bawling my eyes out for a bit, I had to face the fact that my husband wasn't coming back. I messed up big time, and it was all on me. He was avoiding me like the plague, but he did reach out to my folks, gave them the whole explanation, making it crystal clear that trying to patch things up was a lost cause. He said even couples therapy wouldn't fix the mess. Then he shot me a text, saying to sign the divorce papers for a smooth breakup that won't drag on forever and cost a ton. And just like that, he disappears from my life. No more constant touch, no replies to my texts. It hurts so hard that this is the end for us and that it's all my fault. Despite the mess, I'm back to the grind at work, though I've cut down on the sick days I used to take. As for that coworker, yeah, he's still physically attractive, but now I'm more repulsed and disgusted by him. The guy triggered this whole disaster by approaching me in the parking lot, and I'll never forgive him for that. He seems to have caught on because now he's bending over backward to please me. But I'm not giving him the time of day. It's a challenge since we're in the same department, but I'm making it clear. No acknowledgement, no nothing. I've had enough of his part in this mess. I didn't go into work today, but I did get an email from coworker. It starts with what seems like a sincere apology to then offering to buy me dinner this weekend to make it up to me. I responded with, "Your advances ruined my marriage, and I will say again that I am not interested in setting you outside of work." His second email was another apology while making sure I knew the offer for dinner as friends to make it up to me would still be on the table. I did not respond to the second one, and he has not reached out again today. I am in a bit of a weird place, growing a bigger dislike towards coworker while still having those weird primal feelings. Planning a nice dinner in and some Netflix and chill when my sister gets home. Definitely putting in for a department change when one becomes available. I've spent a little time browsing job postings, but I do love where I work, so I don't think that's the best solution.